I wanted to make a video about Star Trek's influence in my life growing up. And I know I can guess many of you probably aren't Star Trek fans, but maybe you can relate because you had some private interest that that helped you to grow, and you drew from, and you have some fondness. So, pardon me, I want to share with you. How Star Trek, how I grew up with Star Trek, how it influenced me, how I grew from it, and so forth. So it started in elementary school. I had seen a few of the movies, Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, and Star Trek III, so forth. I'll skip over that. But I would say it was in fifth grade. I saw Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home. It was probably like January, it was easily the winter of like 86 going into 87. And I saw it with my mom. Back then, I would see several movies. And there were several movies where I would see repeatedly. Um, so I was interested in this show. I can't say I wasn't, totally unfamiliar with it, but um, that spring, I became so fascinated that I read several of the novelizations. There was an author that took some, I think he did all the episodes of the TV show, and then he turned them into prose writing. He took the dialogue, he took them from the scripts before they were filmed, and in television, sometimes, well, or maybe many times, the script changes before it goes to actual shooting of the show. Um, so that's partly what I want to get into. I want to talk about how Star Trek helped me learn about the television industry and film industry, of course. Star Wars did more of that. Um, but I borrowed these from the library. I borrowed these books that he wrote based on the Star Trek scripts. Um, and I also, my mom actually photocopied a guidebook called the Star Trek Compendium. It had all the episodes in it and some background information for each episode. It would show like a write up of a few pages for each episode and some pictures. And there's a Star Trek Compendium. In fact, we borrowed it, or I borrowed it, so many times that my mom photocopied it and put hole punches through it and put it in a whole, like a binder, 3-ring binder. And I would flip through. Eventually, I'd buy a couple of editions of the actual Star Trek Compendium. But it was a wonderful time. Um, Early 87, um, WPIX, which was here, Channel 21 and cable. It was Channel 11 broadcasting from New York, but if you had cable, it was Channel 21. And it would air episodes in the middle of the night. Um, I'll skip by. If for those of you who are curious, who actually know Star Trek, I woke up to my first episode, which was The Empath, which was like darkness around three characters, Kirk, Spock, and McCoy, and just it was like a dream. I mean, not a fantasy dream. It was literally like they're walking around in darkness and they're talking amongst themselves. Not a great example of Star Trek. um, but I continued watching. I um, then Fox was this fledgling network. It was somewhere around April 1987 when it began broadcasting, and it would air Star Trek 5 nights a week, either 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock. Either way, I think. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But 5 nights a week, so they were airing them in production order, so I could follow along with my compendium, that book that I mentioned that had each episode, listed and devoted some pages to each episode. so I could follow right along. And I remember I was going to Boy Scout meetings at the time. They were Wednesday nights. So some of the episodes I even remember my mom telling me about, um, and the ones that I had missed. So um, I had already begun collecting the comic books. So it was a panoply of Star Trek. And the comic books. You had the cartoon, the Saturday morning cartoon, which, well, Nickelodeon would air the the filmation episodes of Star Trek. That takes some explanation. Okay, when in 1960s, when the original series aired, it had 3 seasons. Then after that, some years go by, and then they made a Saturday morning version, an animated version of the show, new episodes just for the animated show, but they didn't make it kiddie fair. They granted it was for like a children's audience, and they were half hour instead of hour long episodes, but um, they were pretty decent. They were somewhat like maybe you know what I would label it for young adult in terms of the kind of audience it would appeal to. So, young adult. So, while I was watching the live action original episodes 5 nights a week, I was also watching Saturday mornings. And Sunday mornings. I was watching Nickelodeon's broadcasting of the animated series from the 70s. Um, and I was collecting, but I wasn't reading through the comic books largely. I was still collecting them. At some point, I would put them aside. I was more interested in my Transformers comic books, but I would put the Star Trek ones aside, knowing they were some value. Um, and I remember somewhat even my mom reading as I would fall asleep. My mom would read to me, and this was in late elementary school. I just enjoyed my mom's voice, and it helped me be content and drift to sleep. And so she would read from these like novelizations of Star Trek episodes I told you about. James Blish, by the way, was the author. So, and then remember, this was before he had, or at least before I had video cassettes um, and streaming video where you could watch things on demand and so forth. So you were limited really to whatever channel was broadcasting whatever show was on. And you were limited to video cassettes if you could afford a VCR. I couldn't afford a VCR. My mom and I didn't have a VCR until I was in freshman year of high school. Um, so, what's the real point of this video? The influence it had on me. Well, right away, I was already interested in Transformers, but I was beginning to shift into Star Trek. And in my spare time, sometimes in school, um, don't tell any of my teachers, but no, I mean, when my work was done, sometimes I would write, like, even come to think of it, now that I remember it, like when we were in study hall or something, like maybe there was a rainy day, I don't know, something or other, or no, I didn't write anything at lunch. I don't know. Sometimes I would write um, Transformers episodes where they were in a spaceship. And I think that was the Star Trek influence coming into that. Um, I would draw some Star Trek characters and the Enterprise and some different ships. And then when I got to middle school, let me see. When I got to middle school, I think when I felt a bit of that ostracization, that feeling that I was different than the other kids, or I wasn't accepted into their group or whatever, these other kids in school, I felt something like Spock. And that middle school age, that was the time when and by the way, for reference, Spock is in the show, Spock has a Vulcan father and a human mother. and Vulcans, Vulcan is planet. Vulcans are from planet Vulcan. Um, Vulcans, rather than being emotional, they were actually more emotional in their past, about like 2,000 years prior. And at some point, one of them starts this movement toward logic and rationality so that they wouldn't murder each other. Like we have these world wars, and we have, humans are very irrational and, emotional, and cause strife and conflict and so forth. So on Vulcan, um, a movement began and continued until Vulcans became a species that prided or valued rationality and thinking through things, and more peaceful pursuits, and very much scientific pursuits, and knowledge, acquiring knowledge, and making the world, universe, a better place. So that and then so his father came from that culture, and his mother was human, so he felt on some level not at home in the Earth's space force, Starfleet, and also not fully Vulcan, but he was between two worlds. So he's very much an outsider. He represents that side of, like, being an outsider in the show, and he gives an alien point of view. So me having just learned that I'm Jewish, and already feeling this sense of separation or not fitting in with the other kids, um, sometimes made me identify with Spock. Um, so, like Spock, priding his Vulcan heritage, I was proud of my Jewish heritage. And I'm also well, I don't want to say between two worlds. My mom is Jewish. My mom was Jewish. I mean, died. But my father was Irish Catholic. And my father didn't live with us full time. He visited us like a handful of times. And oh, I forgot to say hi. Oh, hi, Harmony. Harmony Thomas? Is that your first name or last name? Hi. Um, Hope you're having a good day. Um, my father is Irish Catholic, very different in terms of upbringing, and my mom was Jewish, brought up Jewish. So right, so my father visited only a handful of times, showing up unexpectedly at the doorstep. Um, he lived in Somerville, Massachusetts. But anyway, I grew up with my mom, and so she had some pride in Judaism too. Um, oh, hi, Tavai. Is that how you pronounce your name? Hi. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing. Tavai, Tavai. Um, so so then we get to high school, and that sticks in more. Oh, Tavai. Oh, thank you. Hi. So it's also good you can hear me. It's good. I don't know how good my audio is. Okay, so in high school, I felt more of that, and the sense of alienation, even the way the school was run. I just felt like an outsider. But outside of school, Star Trek was fascinating. It had The episodes were a combination of drama, philosophy, um, encouraging a creative mind, encouraging encouraging me to think about, first of all, how television is put together, how people relate to each other, high philosophical questions and issues. And so It was difficult to relate. It didn't. You can tell how many times Star Trek came up in school, like never. Um, who was? Oh, so I had a friend, a close friend, and he began watching Star Trek like 1991. It's funny going back a little bit, how quickly I caught myself up to speed on like everything Star Trek. I told you before, I had seen Star Trek 2 and Star Trek 3 a little bit, and then Star Trek 4 in the movie theater. That was around 1980, like January 87 or maybe December 86, something like that. I watched that, and then afterwards, I absorbed everything I could. I'm that type of person. I read some of the novels. I read the James Blish adaptations. I was watching the TV shows and the cartoons. So between Fox airing them 5 nights a week and Nickelodeon airing them on the animated ones on the weekends, and I was by summer 1987, I was caught up pretty much. Oh, I'm wondering Tavai, I'm wondering what you're going to um change your profile name to. That's interesting. Um so I let me see. Between that by the summer, I was familiar with the comic book series, and thanks for the laugh. Um Mrs. RN. Oh, are you a registered nurse? Mrs. RN 9433. Oh. um, I wouldn't guess how many. Um, so I was already caught up with the comic book series, and uh thanks Sacred Mess Brew. Um I was caught up with the comic book series and all these things Star Trek. So by the time the Star Trek The Next Generation premiered in the fall of 1987, I was caught up and I was a fully fledged fan. And um, so that was also during, let me see, as we go into the Star Trek The Next Generation, um, I was going through puberty, technically, biologically, I guess. And um, there was Counselor Troy was, I guess like a lot of shows, especially at that time, they would have a um leading lady, like a male appeal character. If those of you who know who Emma Peel was, she was in the Avengers. Emma Peel obviously is male appeal. Emma Peel. So there would be this male, you know, this appealing female that would attract male audiences. And so in Star Trek The Next Generation, that was Counselor Troy. And about that same time, I'm going to verge a little from Star Trek for a moment. There were other, I remember Splash 2, um, shown over 2 nights on Disney, Sunday night movie. And around that same time, Something is Out There. And I remember, starting to be attracted to these women that I saw on screen. And meanwhile, um, meanwhile, um, in school, which is really the only outside of having a couple friends outside, um, in school, you're exposed to a lot of kids your age. And as I said in my earlier video, I didn't think girls saw me as attractive, and there's a socialization thing. So tell me below if you want to, if this sounds familiar to you, that you felt alone, or if you felt ostracized, or that you had this whole other world. That's what this video is about. This whole other world that you enjoyed, but you didn't think anybody would understand it nor appreciate it. So that was what it was like for me. I could go into my bar mitzvah I had in eighth grade a little bit, in another video, but going into high school, as I said, it was the same thing. And then let me see. High school, however, I going back to Star Trek, I would write scripts, spec scripts. These are spec, short for speculative scripts. They would be like a calling card, like a demonstration of your writing style. What that you can write stories. Ah, thank you so much. I'm trying to. Um, I'm 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 approaching it. I'm learning the ropes. Learning what it takes, and I'm building. With these podcasts I'm planning and doing these live streams. I'll get there. I'm somebody who won't stop. I know it's a good goal. I have things to share. So I would write these speculative scripts, some for Star Trek, some for Married with Children, for Night Court, so forth. Um, and some shows that were even off the air, like Get Smart, just for the sake of it. I enjoyed Get Smart. So I would send them off to production companies, and that's something I guess you don't do. But I was young and I was naive, and I figured if they look at my Star Trek script, Star Trek The Next Generation script, they could see, oh, he can write. Of course, I know a lot more now than I did then, but um, oh, hi. Hi, Chatty. I hope you keep on. I hope you continue watching. Thanks for having you aboard. Um, I So I figured that they would see my ability, writing ability, and maybe I could get hired, even though I was in high school. See, that's how naive and young I was. Um, and that was my somewhat. So Star Trek was somewhat my escape. It was my theater, and I'll talk about that soon. It was my escape, my theater, and something that I could identify with, something that I could enjoy with my mom too, because my mom enjoyed Star Trek, and especially for Star Trek: The Next Generation, we would sit and watch it together. Um, we'd go and Star Trek Four was the only one at that point that had been released in the theaters, but we had seen it several times together, and it was a bonding moment. It was a means to bond together about something. And she was interested. She wasn't just, you know, placating me, or she wasn't just loosely familiar. She read science fiction when she was a child, and she knew the characters. She even commented, like for example, remember when I mentioned Fox was airing these 5 nights a week? There was one episode called The Galileo 7. I had not seen it before, but according to that Star Trek compendium, which would list them in production order, I knew that that episode would be airing soon, that Wednesday. So I remember my mom picking me up from a Boy Scout meeting that Wednesday evening, and walking home. It was a short walk home. And that's how close I was with my mom. She was a really great mom. Um, I want to do a tribute to her, a good tribute to her. Um, she talked about the Galileo 7, like philosophically. All right. The Galileo 7, the plot is that Spock and several lower ranked crew members, hi, lower ranked crew members were beached on a planet, and they had no means really to get off the planet. And there were dangerous inhabitants and so forth, dangerous creatures to beware of. And it's all about Spock being in command, really, for the first time. And another character says you have to take into account emotional responses. You have to take emotion into account too. It's not just leadership by logic. So at the end, they have only enough fuel to launch them into orbit, and then they have like 10 minutes of fuel or something before they burn up in the atmosphere and die. However, Spock, at a last moment decision, ignites the fuel and or jettisons the fuel and ignites it. And oh, oh, I understand. Oh, so you changed it to Chatty. That's an interesting name. Tavai to Chatty. I wonder what the H9X means. That's something. Maybe it was just random. But if there's a story behind that, it's interesting. Um, by the way, do you know what Tavai means? I wonder. It sounds like a name that means something. It'd be interesting what it means. Um, so Spock jettisons the fuel, ignites it. The Enterprise happens to see it at the very last moment and beams them aboard as the shuttle is burning up in the atmosphere. So they were saying, well, it was an emotional, impulsive moment. It was not logical at all. But see, here's where Star Trek, philosophy figures in. Oh, you're Hawaiian. Oh, that's interesting. Hawaii is such a warm place. Um, I've wanted to live in Southern California, Los Angeles and so forth, as you can probably tell, but Hawaii would be a really tropical, nice place to live. I hope it's not too hot. I wonder, is it prone to are you prone to sweat? Is it very humid in Hawaii? It's a beautiful place. Wow. Um so by the way, are you native Hawaiian? I'm guessing you are based on the name and so forth. Um, so, all right, so impulsive human emotional decision. But my mom and I, oh, wow. Oh, from, I think Las Vegas, I don't think it's human. I mean, I don't think it's human. I don't think there are humans there. No, no, humid. But I'm guessing it's very, very hot. Um, I wonder about water supplies and so forth there, but I hope you're enjoying it there in Las Vegas. Um, so my mom and I agreed. My mom explained this thing about, they were calling it emotional, but it was actually pretty rational because Spock realized, okay, the ship is going to burn up in the atmosphere and if there's a certain death. Or if I jettison the fuel and ignite it, that somebody could see the lit fuel and possibly rescue us. So between certain death and a possible chance for life, I would pick the certain chance for life, the possible chance for life rather than certain death. So I think his decision was completely logical. And see, that's where one of the things I really appreciate about Star Trek, it's philosophical, it makes you think, it encourages you to think, not just makes you it encourages you to think. And people can discuss things with each other as I did with my mom. Now I go to the theater part of Star Trek. It has of course 1960s special effects, you couldn't do a lot. But a lot of it was intellectual, whereas they couldn't afford special effects. They could describe what was happening. So you have great risks, great dangers being described. Um, People making self-sacrifices, people being heroes, people struggling for a better world. People wanting a better life and some sense of understanding each other, or at least wanting to understand each other. Um, you see more dimensions of a person. So, um, great things at stake. Like Kirk's career in many episodes, he puts his career um, he balances his career against the life of his friend or the future well-being of his friend, and that carries into the movies as well. Um, Great people to look up to and admire, like role models. Um, so these are things that I didn't think the kids in school, first of all, were aware of Star Trek, and I thought that they would demean it. They didn't put any value in it. They didn't care about it. So it was just me and my haven with my mom. And sometime in high school, with this best friend of mine, he started watching and he actually started video recording it. And I started video recording it. And I guess you could say my Star Trek interest also got into editing, videotape editing, and so forth, and collecting. Um, and I my mom actually paid for it, but I we got the Paramount Home Video complete collection of Star Trek on video cassette, and there was also a rival collection, the Columbia House Home Video collection of Star Trek. And so, how did I grow from Star Trek? Um, well, creatively, um, I drew Star Trek characters. I I drew Star Trek characters and Star Trek things. I read the novels. Um, I let my mind be expanded by thinking of moralistic choices, philosophy. Um, when they would mention like quasar, I would look up to see what a quasar actually was scientifically. And as I went into college, I got an interesting book. It was an impulse buy because these books were on sale. So I got what was there was I think it was just called Kennedy by a famous writer, author, obviously. I can't remember his name. Richard. His first name was Richard something. But he wrote an autobiography of Kennedy. Oh, well, we've got to come up with some name, right? Chatty. Chatty is a decent name. Chatty's a good name, especially if you yourself are chatty. Um, so I got a book. I think it's just called Kennedy, um, by Richard Reeves. That was the author, Richard Reeves, on discount in this bookstore. Maybe the bookstore was going out of, going out of business, something like that. So I got that book. I got a book called Inside the White House, which was written by uh, an editor, a couple of editors who put it together based on information they got from interviewing Secret Service agents and interviewing other people who worked in the White House. So it was an inside tour, somewhat of the White House. And I was already interested in politics by that point, but I got this other book called The God Particle, and I was really intrigued. The God Particle was essentially, and I forget the name of the author. You can look it up. It's called The God Particle. Um, it was a search for ultimately the God particle, which is, if I remember correctly, the this boson, and I don't want to get too technical, but this boson type of I don't want to call it a particle because people would comment. I would welcome any comments, but I mean, I don't want to mislabel it. It's a force. Basically, it's a force entity. Um, the photon is the force entity that carries the electromagnetic spectrum. The graviton, supposedly, if it exists, carries the force of gravity. So there was a presumed or suspected force carrier for mass, a sense of mass, endowing these particles with a sense of mass. So that was that search for the, and I can't remember what the name of the force carrier is, the boson. But it was that search. So this author starts off the book by talking about ancient Greece and Democritus, who was hypothesizing that there's a like a smallest particle, like at some level, everything can be broken down to, or reduced to, I should say, um, a type of particle or several kinds of particles. And he spends the rest of the book explaining the history of physics all the way up to this search for the mass, the force carrier of a sense of mass. And they did find it. I believe they did find it. I My knowledge of, my memory of theoretical physics is rusty, but as I recall, they found it. um and now it's gravity that's speculative, the graviton. They don't know whether that there is that. And then in Star Trek, they came up with another thing called the chronoton particle, which endows a sense of time. Um, but I borrowed, not borrowed, I bought that book along with those other books, and that began my interest in physics. So, alongside Star Trek, well, no, let me say Star Trek uh, influenced and motivated me to wonder how space travel could work, how you could create an engine, what they call a warp drive engine in Star Trek. How could that work in real life given real physics? And that motivated me to learn physics on my own. I didn't have the math background, unfortunately, but I could understand concepts, and I stretched my mind by reading physics articles and physics journals and so forth, to learn. And I got into superstrings and so forth. So that's getting a little off track. Um, so that's another way in which Star Trek influenced me. It also influenced me in terms of politics. Um, I had already been influenced and felt motivated and enthusiastic after the 1992 presidential campaign, to go into politics and be president someday. And I posted a video sometime earlier in this channel about what I would do as president. But Star Trek then was another thing I could look into, how to make the country and hopefully the world a better place. Like, Star Trek showed a future in which there's no hunger. The people work together with each other, like internationally. You have a Scotsman with an alien Vulcan, with an Asian, with a Russian, and an American, Canadians. And there are very few nationalities that weren't represented in the show at some point, including, if you go through all the different series, Native Americans, um, blacks, whites, women, men, they were working together, and they had a positive attitude towards the future and a positive attitude towards life. Like, how can we make this better? How can we understand each other's problems and work together? Oh, thank you. My profile name is very cool. Well, thank you. You mean Ideas Between Us? I changed it from the company name, which is Visionary Ventures. Um, Thank you. Um, oh, Alien. Oh, I mean an alien. Oh, oh, cool. I'm not sure what you mean by that, but thank you. My profile name is pretty cool. Um, so um, so I drew from that ideas like, what would it take theoretically, if I were president, to help move us as a country, the United States, and hopefully globally, the world, move us towards an era as depicted in Star Trek, where the nations work together and we have a united Starfleet. We could have countries, and they're beginning to work on this. I mean, like China and the United States and Russia and so forth are working on this. There's the International Space Station. So Star Trek has always embodied that sense of hope and optimism and constructive thoughts and so forth. So I'm trying to, before I leave, I want to think through if there's anything else about how Star Trek influenced me. Um, I think that's it for right now. I don't want to make this too long, but tell me if you'd like to hear more about this or in any of my videos. Um, if you watch one, comment and oh, so long. It's been nice. Thanks for staying while you can, Chatty. Hope Las Vegas has good temperature right now. It's the summer, but I'll talk with you soon. Um, ah, thank you. Ah, thank you so much. Thank you. Um, so where was I? Yeah. Comment on any of my videos. Tell me because I'm already looking for ideas. I have a list that I use with I use Claude AI to generate some interesting ideas based on my life that I could talk about, and I don't know what people would be interested in. I could just simply try it out. I'm working towards that subscriber tally list that I was caught between subscription and subscriber. That subscriber count that would enable me to monetize my videos. That's also why I'm doing these live action videos. I'm working on getting work. I know right now it's slow, but I have an interview with somebody from an office department that helps people get jobs. So hopefully, and that's tomorrow. So hopefully that will be something. And wish me luck. Please wish me luck that I get this state job, which would have state benefits and so forth. So I hope you've been having a good day so far. If it's your birthday, happy birthday. And meanwhile, until next we meet, I'll be developing my next video. Talk to you soon. Bye.